Thank you for joining us on Worldwide Slot Car Chat on Zoom, number 70 today. I'm your host, Greg Gaub, and today we've got pretty much a nice big gang of people. John, Neil, Petrucci, Paul, Martin, Jeremy. Henry's new, but he's working on his connection. Leo, Lance, Wayne, Big Den, Frank, Mike, Nick, and Little Den, otherwise known as Dennis Sampson. And I'm sure other people will be joining us. We got some of our regular non-camera people on as well. As usual, we'll start with show and tell. I don't have a particular thing to show and or tell. Jeremy put up his finger. Do you got something you want to show or tell? Hit your mute button.
I got two things. Yep.
All right.
I just said that. I got two things. I missed out on the SCX CUDA release. It kind of went by and it's all sold out. So I went to like all the distributors that were selling them, asking them if they had any broken boxes or anything. And finally one got back to me, and this was a broken box one. I got the pink one finally. I was so excited about that. And then the second thing I thought this one was kind of cool, is that I 3D printed my own track onto, yeah, Greg knows what it is. There's a Dunlop tower you can get, and when you print it, it prints with their track. Let's see if I can do this part here. So I just put in my track's name and my layout, and then now I'll have my own personalized little track Dunlop tower.
That's awesome. I've been wanting to do that, but I just didn't have a good reason to do it. So that's your actual layout on there, huh?
Yeah, that's my layout, and it's still printing. I've seen some of your parts up there that I thought I'm going to try those too and see which ones I like better.
Yeah, the modded ones, just the modifications that I did make it easier to assemble by adding tabs in good places. The original model didn't have tabs in some places, so you just kind of had to line it up and glue it. But I added some tabs, and then the door, so you can do the color changing on the layers for the door to give it.
Yeah,
Can we see the CUDA again? We kind of just flashed by the.
Yeah, I was also gonna. Is that the new run that David was promoting a few months ago?
Yeah, it's the pink one that he did with the only reason I got it was because I wanted the new motor and the new motor pod for one of my other Trans Am series. I wanted to test it out and see, because the one thing I've always hated about SCX is their god-awful motors. They're just terrible. You can't race them against Scalextric. But This one actually does. This one's hitting, I think, 34 kilometers per hour on the little 32 speed scale checker I have, which is about what the Scalextric ones do. So I was like, oh, let's see what happens. And I got a race this weekend, so I'll give it a test, see how it goes.
Does it have a similar? It's got a can motor like Scalextric's do, right?
Well, it's kind of weird. It's got like half the can, and then the other half is still the SCX front black part adapter.
Oh, okay.
So it's like they took half of a real Mabuchi motor, connected it to their proprietary thing, and they gave you kind of a Frankenstein motor. But the pod also now doesn't have the weird bearings. It has actual real bearings that you can clip in and clip out. So I was excited to see that. And then I can give this pink one to my daughter after I got it. So
there you go.
Like that.
For those of us who are old slot racers, the SCX motor is not the Frankenstein. It's the other motors that are the Frankensteins.
Yep, that's true. And I'll give SCX its due. They're great cars with the pod and everything. I actually quite like a lot of the SCX car features. I just am not a fan of the motor simply because it changes its RPM so much as it warms up. So like when we run SCX cars, with those RX or RK or whatever 42 or whatever motors they had, the first guy would always have the lowest lap time when we did the King of the Hill because the motor was cold, and then as it warmed up, the later on guys not only would have better traction because the track was clean and the tires kept getting clean, but the motor was nice and warm, so it would be going.
And they had way too much brakes, most of them too.
And that too, you got to turn your brakes way down.
That's the new pod.
Let me spotlight that.
Yeah, that's the new pod. You see, like, there's the SCX part, but then here's an actual regular standard Mabuchi on this.
And that motor looks like the ones that came from Slot Heroes or Slot Car Heroes some years back. I've got a whole bunch of those here somewhere.
I messaged Kennedy. I was hoping they just had the pods, but they're not gonna. He's not gonna get just the pods. I mean, I'd love to replace some of my old cars that don't perform very well with these, but
yeah, as Dave often says, getting a
parts don't
company to do the replacement parts don't sell. So it's like, okay, well, maybe there'll be a 3DP. You can get off of Shapeways or print it or whatever at some point for that pod. That'd be pretty sweet.
Yeah,
Does anybody else have any show and tell they want to share? Big Dan, you got something?
I was just to say that SCX motor, that's roughly S-can size. It's called the FR42.
The one that the one that was in that pod just now that he was showing?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
It looks like a typical S-can just with a different bell, instead of Looks like Brian's showing something off. You want to unmute and then we'll get to Dennis? Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, this is that thingy-based body I've been working on. I got some paint on it. Sorry for the poor lighting. I'm at my desk / dining room table.
No, that looks great, Brian.
Pretty good level with not too bad. Rimmed, got to do the inserts in the front wheels next, and then it should be done. So.
And you need a kind of maybe a gray around the front here to look like a windshield, and it look really good.
I tried to come up with something like that, even if I painted it in.
Yeah.
And because of the shape of this, because it's actually flat on top.
Yeah.
Trying to get something masked off in there was just like a freaking nightmare. So.
But it looks like an IndyCar aero screen. It's really cool.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Is put a little piece of gray around the front of the curved piece.
Yeah, I think I may even try molding it in the model itself. So
but it's cool. I love it. It's great.
As well. And it reminds me of Speed Racer's arch enemy's car.
Everything about it is fun.
That's what I was. Little rub through there I got to touch up, but other than that, it's a custom yellow I mixed up. It's a pearl. It's not super uber smooth, but I thought it looked okay.
Yeah, you can see that going around the track one of these days.
All you see is a blur.
Well, that's good, right?
When don't we see a blur? It is the fastest thing I own right now.
That's super cool, Brian. I love seeing those updates. Looks like you're done. Dennis, you had something you wanted to show?
I was just showing one of those motors.
Oh, okay.
Can you see it there?
Yeah, hold it.
There you go. That I think is pretty much the motor that, or very similar to what's now in the SCX cars. But these years back were sold by a company called Slot Car Heroes, and where they got them from I don't know, but they actually work pretty well. The brush gear is exposed, but it's actually a little better than the regular brush gear on some of the motors that we use. Anyway,
if you can source those, let us know.
Say again?
If you can source like somebody that has those still, let us know. I'd love to get a couple.
Yeah, no, I managed to pick up a couple off a guy either on Home Racing World or on eBay, and I think it was on Home Racing World that was selling them off at one stage. And I had used them some years back, and I liked them, so I bought. He had a 6 or 8 or something that he was selling off, so I bought them, and I've been using them in various projects since then.
Looks like Mike, you got something you want to show?
Yeah, got a 917 Porsche, the newer one.
NSR?
Yeah, NSR.
Nice.
I was going to get the green one, but I thought it was a fantasy livery, and I since discovered it's not. Now I got to buy both.
So what?
That's how it works, buddy.
Well, there are certain people in my household that don't have the same affinity for these things.
Let's see the bottom of it.
Just hide it. Put it in the cupboard. Say it was in there for ages.
Yeah, right.
I think Brian wanted to see the bottom of it.
All right. Magnet in place. Very good.
Of course, Brian.
That's a tungsten weight. No. I mean, if there's a car to try no mag with, it's going to be an NSR, because that is just straight fire right out of the box. Just turn each screw back a quarter turn, not even a half a turn, and they just hug the turn.
And most of them actually are like that when they come out of the box.
Yeah, if they're tight.
That's
Michael,
one thing about NSR is they
again.
don't tighten them up all the way.
Yeah.
Michael, show the chassis again a minute, please.
Sure.
Has that got the new Yeah, it's got the new what? It's got the half moon thing. So that means that it's got pushing bearings on that pod, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
the new
That's,
one.
yeah. And that's the new, isn't that the new slightly faster motor they're putting with the classic?
Yeah.
Yeah, the 21.5 Shark.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's the same pod that's on the 908.
And the 910.
Yeah.
Yeah, 91710.
910?
91710.
Oh,
Kelley
yes.
one.
Yes. Yeah, I was thinking of the 910 Porsche rather than the
Yeah.
91710.
All right, good stuff. Love some NSR cars. Anybody else got anything they want to show or tell about?
Doing my homework.
All right, Nick, what you got?
Audio and stuff.
Evening, everybody. We all right?
Yeah.
Good. You may remember a little while ago, when Gio was talking about Area 71 cars, and he had a Bentley, and I picked up a Corvette. This is the Corvette.
Oh,
Finished.
Very
Not
nice.
quite finished, but it's nearly there.
Nice.
That's looking really good, Nick.
Yep,
Does look
very
good.
nice.
I was
Where did you
really-
get the decals?
The decals are from Le Mans decals.
Okay.
I had to mix because obviously the C8 kit only comes with the number 3 or 4 from INSA. So I had to get the C7R kit, the Le Mans kit, to get the 63 off it to put on that, being as it's Le Mans weekend. I'm assuming everybody knows that. So yeah, that's the progress with that.
Beautiful.
It's not wired up or anything yet. It's got to go and have the lights put in it. I'm gonna give that to Adam, our friend Adam Lemaistre. He'll put the lights in it for me.
What chassis? What pod did you use? Did you use the regular chassis that comes with the kit?
Yeah.
Okay, and an angle winder.
Yep.
With an adapter. Is that it's a slotted angle winder pod?
It's a homemade, home modified angle winder.
Okay.
So you can move the motor, you can move it to get the different mesh with different diameter pinions or different diameter spur gears, and
nice.
Yeah. As yet untried, as I say, it's not wired up yet. Really pleased with the weight. The body, the interior is in it, although it's got to come out to be painted still. The body with the interior in it, the spoiler in it, everything comes in at 16 grams. So by the time you put 4 or 5 grams of light kit in it, it still comes under the minimum weight for DISCA rules of 22 grams. So really pleased with it. Really pleased with how that's turned out.
And I'm guessing that'll hit the track in November, will it, Nick?
Possibly, maybe, I don't know. We are having a digital Saturday on, let me get the date, 11th of September. Just a little 2-lane round our scale track. Wayne, you know what that is. We'll probably test it then. Depending on how that goes, we may put it on the track end of November. We'll see how it goes.
I presume that your Ford GT survived the 6-hour endurance in good order and will run again if necessary.
Yeah, the Ford that's ready to go again. Although the longevity of that car is in question. It runs okay, but I don't like to keep things too long. I like to kind of move with the times a little bit. So while the Ford is a reasonably reliable car, it's time to put it to bed and move on. Maybe we'll see. Yeah. We'll see how it goes.
Very good.
Good looking car.
Looking like a real racer. You're just so non-committal.
Maybe we'll see. Does anybody else have anything they want to show or tell about?
Yeah, I've got something more.
All right, hit us, Dennis.
Okay, you're gonna zoom in on me?
Yep.
So this is the another poly car for a customer, done with the this thing. when it's mirror imaged like that, it's difficult. Done with the Atalaya decals for the Aston Martin. So
Dennis, that looks so good it should be disqualified.
it's pretty, isn't it? It was the plain black kit. I didn't know quite how I was going to get a dark enough green, so I started with the black body and put the metallic green over the black, and it's come out pretty good. I'm not sure that it's quite right, but I think it's close enough. And once again, the Atalaya decals are very nice, very easy to apply, strong. They stick well. So yeah, it came out good. I'm sure. Hopefully, the customer's going to enjoy that.
Well, at least you got the right teammate to go around the track. Stroll will just bang into everybody.
Yeah, he wanted the Vettel one. I didn't put a Vettel helmet on him. I left the stock helmet. But I could probably have put an Interlagos Miniatures helmet on, but I left the stock one.
Is that
so there is? Yeah.
Is that some kind of satin paint or satin finish? It doesn't look like your typical glossy.
Well, it's just that I laid it on in very, very light coats, so it didn't really flow as I laid it down, because I didn't want to completely cover the black behind it. So I laid it down in mists until I got the color about right, and so that's probably why it didn't get a very glossy surface. And I haven't put a clear coat over it either.
So you almost did like a candy apple over black.
Yeah, it was just the plain Tamiya metallic green. But if you put it on very dry like that, then it doesn't gloss up completely.
It looks fantastic.
That's nice.
Yeah, hopefully the guy will be happy with it. It's not for me; it's for Electric Dreams customer.
Well, it looks like Henry's back on. You want to check your mic, Henry? It's not working, so maybe we'll try that some other time. Does anybody else have any show and tell they want to share or show or tell or ask? Seeing none and hearing none, I will kind of move on to what I was going to mention. Did you have something you wanted to share, Big Den? I saw you waving your hand. You're muted.
On.
There you go.
Yeah. Okay. It's more of a bitch and moans session rather than a show and tell.
Go for
it. As you guys know, I fairly regularly race with the chaps at the other end of the state in Hobart. They recently just completed a Slottit DTM series. So I joined in for round 3 and gave a car a few test laps. Came the race, I got to the first corner and the car stopped dead. And I thought, hello, you're unlucky to break a wire this early. So we tried it again, back on the start line, got to the first corner and stopped dead. What had happened, my braids were slightly too long, and I'd gone to the only place in 4 lanes where the braids actually rode on top of the wood and didn't contact didn't contact the the actual braid. So anyway, from the rest of it, once the slide adjustment went off without a hitch. I then went back for round 7, got through the first heat all right. Halfway through the second heat, my car just uncontrollably slammed into the wall at the end of the longest straight, and someone put it back on and away it went. Controller spring broke. Boy, you can have some funny things happen to you, can't you? Yeah.
First the braids and then the controller.
so and I mean that DS controller of mine isn't all that old and hadn't done a lot of use, racing about an average of every 2 to 3 weeks. So, oh boy, what next? I'm wondering, So anyway, that's my little bitch and moan over for this week.
Dan, maybe I should send you a little 132nd scale Colin Chapman, because that sounds like such a Lotus thing to happen.
Yeah.
I was thinking a 132nd scale violin.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, yeah, for Big Den, you'd want a bigger scale than that. So,
125.
Paul, any chance you can 3D print us a spring?
Yeah, that's right.
Actually, yeah, there was a recent one of the YouTubers I
God.
watched was doing 3D using 3D filament wrapped around a thing and then warmed up so that it stayed in that shape. But yeah, not for slot car controllers. But I heard Henry's microphone seems to be working. Do you want to say something, Henry?
Yeah, you asked me to introduce myself.
There we go. Yes, please. Tell us all about Henry's slot car related history.
Yeah, it's a normal story. I think, like anybody, as a child, my older brother had a Faller track, and we played around with Faller with a lot of fun. And you get older, you get your own kids, and you buy an SEX track. My mistake, but and then I moved to this house, and I fetched the SEX track with Christmas, and the children are already out of home. And it was December in Christmas, and in March the track was still in the room, playing with my wife, with my mother-in-law, with my friends. That was a time that we have to dusting the room for once, so it had to leave. And then I went over to Slipstream, a track, a club, now about 50 minutes from my home, and yeah, I've been there for 3 years also now, and from that on, I have my own track, 32 meters of Carrera, and the last one I did was a rally track, Ninko, a wooden track with lane changes from Carrera, and with the, you know all about it, of my chipping adventures.
Yeah. We'll figure it out. Well, thank you very much. Go on.
Where are you located?
We had an old barn, and we tear that down, and now I have a new barn for about 21 meters by 7, and on the loft, it's my playing room.
All right, Travis, you're making noise. I'm going to mute you.
Hey, Henry, where are you from? I can hear a little bit of your accent. I'm not picking it up.
By the sound of it.
I'm from Amsterdam.
Amsterdam.
Yeah. Living about 100 yards away from Schiphol.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. I'm glad we got your computer working. I see Scott McPhee. I don't think you've been on here before, have you, Scott?
No, I haven't.
Would you like to give us your slot car related history?
Sure. I'll give you the quick version.
Sure.
I got, I guess, back like most of you, back in the, I guess, 70s, got into the HO, the AFX back in the day. I mean, I grew up in rural Nova Scotia, and that was the only slot cars that I knew. I wasn't even aware of 132nd or 124th at that time. So, I mean, as a lot of you sort of got out of it for during the teen years and a bit early into adulthood, and then in the I think around 2005, when I was living out in Alberta, I decided to get back in it and got my mom to send out my old cars, thinking that I was going to resurrect the AFX stuff and that. But looking at the prices back then, I said, screw that shit. And I decided to pick up a couple of Ninko starter tracks, and then started, I guess, building up on the 132nd collection, and eventually got from magnet into the non-magnet racing. And now I'm in Ontario, I started racing on the wood tracks, and that with some guys at the west of Toronto area. And I don't currently have a track myself, but I do race with some guys on the west end here. And that's, well, I guess with COVID, it's been hit and miss recently, but yeah, no, looking forward to getting back into it. And I watched most of the calls, just haven't had the opportunity to get on yet. I mean, I'm actually playing hooky now. I am in the office today, but hey, the boss is away, so the mice will play.
That's
So-
okay. It's great to have another Canuck, eh?
That's right, John.
Well,
But yeah, so that's my story.
Good stuff. Thanks for joining us. Hope you can come back again.
Yeah.
Go on if you had something else.
Nope, that's it.
All right, cool. Well, again, thanks for joining us, and thanks Henry for joining us. And to anybody out there watching, it's super easy to join us. It's just Zoom. It's not Microsoft Word or Excel or something like that. Just Google Worldwide Slot Car Chat on Zoom, and you'll find one of the dozen plus places I post the link to, so that you can join and participate. Since it looks like we're pretty much done with show and tell.
Hey, I saw Henry with something there.
Oh, you got something else, Henry?
Yeah.
What you got?
I don't know if you see it now on your screen.
We see what you're seeing right now.
We see your face.
We see your face. There you go.
It's Imola Cars from Italy. Totally 3D printed. Flat 6 in it. And it drives about 29, 30 kilometers per hour. It's one of the fastest at this moment on the track. And it's a wonderful car.
Wow.
It's the FA1 electric. So we tried something new. We want to, how do you call it? For the new people, something to attract. And it hasn't got decals on it yet because we have to make them. But they made really wonderful cars, about 30, 35 euros. And it's all empty, of course. It's only a 3D print then.
Yeah, what do they call it?
Imola Cars. Can you see it?
Oh, Imola Cars. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
You can order them, and they drive with it. And we just had a try. I bought 10 of them, and they're just as fast as the LMPs at our club. We've tried it with rubber, the F22. I like that more because you have more of a challenge, because on soft tires it's only lifting.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, I'm looking at it on Facebook now. They've got a page. It's Imola Cars -Delta Slot, and it's all in Italian. But man, the photos look fantastic.
Yeah, and they're not because they're not open wheels, so you can drive to each other, and they're strong. They can have something.
Dennis, can you copy that link into the chat so that I can make sure it's in the video description later on?
It's on its way.
So I'll segue from Henry, because Henry and I have been kind of helping with some troubleshooting, or he's been running into some oxygen oddities, we'll say. So I'll segue from that topic that we didn't address to one that some people might find interesting. One of the complaints, one of the more common complaints about oxygen is not the system itself, but the fact that more or less the only controller that can be used with it is the Slottit SCP controller. And a lot of people just don't like that controller, or ergonomically they don't like it. You know, the spring is too soft, or the knobs and buttons are all on the wrong side because they're left-handed, or they just don't like the feel of it, or whatever the case may be. And there aren't any other options other than, the Scalextric ARC, wireless controller can be made to function as an oxygen controller, but it doesn't have any adjustments at all. And so I sent an email to Slottit and said, hey, have you guys considered, sharing whatever you need to share so that a competitor can make a Slottit oxygen compatible controller?
Yeah.
And the first response was, well, no, that'd be a lot of work for us, because we would have to write firmware for their controller, or tell them absolutely everything, which isn't necessarily a good move. But then I got another response a few days later, which was basically, oh, we thought of a great way that we can enable other makers of controllers to make oxygen controllers, and that is, With the SCP-3, there is an optional, because the SCP-3 has built-in oxygen wireless capability. You don't have to add a cartridge to add oxygen wireless like you did for the other controllers. But it's relatively low range, so it's good for, smaller tracks or home tracks and stuff like that, but maybe not adequate for the 24-hour oxygen race in that huge auditorium or whatever the case may be. It's low power transmitting. But they offer an accessory called the power amplification module that is much higher power transmission that just plugs right in. And he realized that the way that the SCP-3 uses that is basically with a serial communication from the controller to the power amplification module, which does all the heavy lifting of their firmware. The power amplification module basically has oxygen controller firmware in it. And the controller is simply sending serial communications to the power amplification module to then send on to the car and the computer and whatnot. So if you want to make a oxygen compatible controller, all you would need to do is contact Slottit, Maurizio, if you have their direct email information already from some other reason, but otherwise email Slottit, support or sales at Slottit, and say, hey, I'm a controller developer. I want to make an oxygen controller. And your job as the controller developer is to do whatever you want to do with the controller as far as what kind of handle it uses, what kind of trigger and spring and where the knobs are, where the buttons are and everything. But your board would have the plug for the power amplification module on it. And you would design your electronic controller to send the appropriate serial communications to the power amplification module. And then you or your customers would then plug in the power amplification module to your controller. Boom, oxygen controller. So, I don't know, DeFalco, TrueSpeed, whoever out there has been saying, well, Slottit will never allow us to compete with them, and we haven't even bothered talking to them about it. If you want to get a piece of that oxygen pie, send an email to Slottit and say, hey, I'm thinking about making us an oxygen compatible controller. And I can't guarantee because I don't work for Slottit, but I'm pretty sure they'll send you the necessary pinouts and serial communication protocol so that you can have a controller function on oxygen. The power amplification module is only a $30 part. It's not an expensive part. So you could have a $100 controller with brakes and lane change. Those are the minimum buttons. There's a brake button and a lane change button, and sensitivity and brakes knobs, and the ergonomics that you think your customers or people who don't like the SCP would turn to you to buy your controller instead of the SCP controller, and sell a bunch of controllers.
So you could make tens of dollars.
You could make tens of dollars.
Understood.
What was that, Nick?
I've never understood with the SCP-2 or one for that matter. I've never understood why they felt the need to have two buttons for lane changing, like your up and down, like your left and right. I've never really, because pretty much everybody I know pushes the two buttons at once.
Yeah, nobody uses the directional lane.
Nobody uses up, down, left, right. They just push the two together. I've never understood why they made it two buttons.
Well, it does have different functions in analog mode. I mean, so they probably were during the initial development. Obviously, I'm just guessing. I've never talked to Maurizio about their specific design ethic during the 15 years ago or whenever they were originally designing this controller. But I'm sure the idea was because they wanted to develop a digital system, they wanted to be able to have directional lane changing, so they wanted the buttons to be there. So they made the buttons have other functions for other, analog racing or electric digital or the other digital systems. They basically wanted to have, and I mentioned this on another post somewhere, probably Facebook. I would not be surprised if when they were designing the controller itself, like the placement of the knobs and the buttons and stuff, they were inspired by the F1 wheels with all the buttons and knobs and stuff like that, going, oh yeah, it's, switches over here and knobs over there and stuff like that. And Because if you look at it, it's got all those controls. It's like, okay, you mirror that, you've got an F1 steering wheel practically.
Driver default 8/alpha/8/driver default, whatever.
Yeah, and the complexity is one of those things that kind of scares people away.
T21.
Yeah, it shows you what happens when you try to be everything to everybody. By the time you're done, nobody's happy.
Yeah,
entirely.
And so now I want to make it clear to anybody out there who was thinking about, maybe they want to do something that they think is a better controller than the SCP for oxygen functionality, obviously. Now you can do it. You can put the knobs on that matter and the buttons that matter and have the ergonomics that are good and whatever. So obviously my hope is that this happens, maybe either True Speed or Sillage Racing, when he was showing us that really cool controller that he was developing. Maybe he'll think about doing an oxygen one with basically using this idea and being able to easily make an oxygen compatible controller that's simple enough and does the basics and the last thing you want to do is lock down your technology, especially in this kind of situation, and just make everybody buy your product. And I've never really seen Slottit as that kind of company. I mean, yeah, you want to make the money, but at the same time, you want your product to succeed and go everywhere. And for digital racing, your best bet is to make that as easy as possible.
What I
Does
know.
anyone?
Sorry?
Sorry, Henry, you go first.
Thank you. What I know, I talked the last week with Marcel Minnaert. He's one of the developers of SEO2. So one of the main problem at this moment is the
dongle.
Yeah, it's not quick enough, and that's the bottleneck at this moment. And I know from Marcel Minnaert that they're developing a new one who is quicker. So it responds quicker because it's got you give the SAP goes to this one and then to the car, and that's the bottleneck. And Marcel Minnaert, the SAP 64 they made for Scalextrics, they're talking against the CU of Scalextrics, and this is a whole different direction. So that makes it very slow, and that's why they cannot do other features than they do at the moment.
And that's basically, that's not oxygen so much as race control system O2, in order for them to do the more the wider simulation things, like you were saying, they can do the simulations with Scalextric digital, because the previous Scalextric digital power base, the APB C7042, was a slave to the computer, and so they were able to do those manipulations. Oxygen was never designed to do those simulations like that, and so in order to get those simulations with oxygen to work really well, yes, they'd need a better throughput of communication and manipulation of that control data. That's not to say that oxygen doesn't work great for racing.
No, not at all.
And that's
because
what
I have the Carrera track. I don't use it anymore because I don't like the commands coming on the rails.
Yeah.
I think it's ineffective. And if you want to race like we do on the club, oxygen is the most wanted.
Yeah, and when I was in Wisconsin playing on that Carrera digital track a few weeks ago, I was using a Slottit car with a Type C chip in it, specifically so that I could put the Carrera firmware on it and then drive it around like a Carrera car, and then comparatively test it by putting the oxygen firmware on it and driving it around like an oxygen car. And the responsiveness was just so much better with oxygen. Same car, same controller, just Carrera technology through the rails and Carrera controls versus oxygen technology through the air. So much better. Yeah, absolutely. No comparison whatsoever between the two. But yeah, hopefully we get a new dongle at some point so that we can have those awesome, realistic simulation features like us Electric guys really got spoiled with RCS 64. So hopefully we get some of that going on. And I think that's the main reason they limited it to 8 drivers in RCS 64 rather than the 20 that Oxygen is capable of, simply because trying to do those simulations with that bottleneck, like you're saying, with more than 8 cars would be just untenable. They just, not to mention, filling a screen with 20 cars with fuel gauges and stuff like that is pretty tricky. But just having more than 8, just having 8 cars was enough data for that dongle to have to handle for those simulation purposes. But for racing, like at the Oxygen 24-hour, like some of the guys here have experienced, they use chrono. They don't do the simulations. It's all about racing. It's all about laps and times and all that, and that's perfectly functional, reliable with the existing dongle. Just want to say that for anybody out there who's going, slotted on.
No, not at all. No.
There are people out there who would get that impression.
We drive the 6 hours in Best, and every year this is called the day is what, and we are now about 20 people on the track, so there's no problem at all. No.
Yeah, those are cool. I hope to be at an event like that at some point in the future, but
that was great.
Yeah,
it's an adventure. Yeah.
All right, awesome. I think that was enough talk about Slottit and Oxygen. Does anybody else have anything they want to bring up or talk about? Go ahead, Nick.
Just quickly going back to the SCP2. I'm not an electronics guy by any means. Has anyone ever tried to bridge the 2 lane change buttons so that you can only use one? Either one, doesn't matter which one. But has anyone ever tried to bridge the 2? I wonder.
No, not I know of.
I don't know.
Just to try and simplify it. I mean, if all you're using your controller for is for digital, you got no intention of ever using it for analog. I'm just wondering whether anyone has ever really took the board out, looked at it, and go, "Oh yeah, if you bypass that one to that one, that one to that one, then you can just use the one button."
So I don't know enough about digital, but you have to use both buttons to change a lane. Is that what you're saying?
No, you don't.
So with Oxygen lane, with pure Oxygen, as we say, for tracks that have Oxygen electronics in the lane changers, the lane changer electronics can be set up such that it knows if it is a in to out or an out to in lane change.
Yes.
And as the driver, you have the choice of going from in to out or out to in as you're driving around the track. So that if you're driving around the track and you want to go from the inside lane to the outside lane, you hold the appropriate button. And if your car then crosses a lane changer that is from the outside to the inside, it does not change lanes. It will only change lanes at the next inside to outside button, lane changer. Or vice versa. If you want to go from out to in, you hold that button and it will ignore any lane changer that goes from in to out. However, if you're racing along and you want to change lanes no matter what kind of lane changer it is because you're stuck behind a back marker, then you hold both buttons and it will change lanes regardless of what the lane changer is that you come upon. It'll just change lanes. And I think Nick was basically saying that although that function is there, nobody ever specifically chooses to use the in to out or out to in. They just press both buttons because whenever they're changing lanes, they don't care if it's in or out to the in, and they just want to get out from behind whoever they're stuck behind. Which makes perfect sense to me. That's pretty much the only time I ever change lanes is to get out from behind somebody, and I don't really care what lane I'm in as long as it's not that lane anymore.
Or to get in the pit lane is the only other one.
Yeah.
If you say an easier solution, wouldn't it be just to like put a popsicle stick between the 2 buttons or something? Or
that's what I was gonna say.
Have that
to make it so that you're always pressing both buttons, a stick across the 2, or a 3D printed button cover that covers them both enough to press them both or something like that. That would be the simplest solution.
if you're used to it, I don't have that problem anymore. There are more problems with the buttons who stick. They stay in, and then you have to. The quality is not good.
Oh, the button's sticking in rather than popping back out. Yeah, I noticed that sometimes if you push the button towards the outside, depending on which button you're pushing, it can tilt a little bit. I haven't really experimented with.
RS2 software, they are using it for a scroll down button. So you can, if I make a team, in the team are 2 people, and when I'm in the pit and we're change drivers, I can choose which driver is riding at that moment, or you can choose to fuel, or you can choose to make something on your car. So they make a scroll down button from it.
Yeah.
But that can do, that you can do with every button, if you want to. Another button.
As far as the sticking buttons, I haven't experimented with anything, but I think it's just a physical thing, right? It's not the electronic button underneath the piece of plastic. It's the piece of plastic wedging itself inside the hole of the controller. So if that happens a lot, and if you get an SCP, you should play with the buttons and see if you can make them stick on purpose. If you can make them stick on purpose, then I would take the controller apart and either file the hole.
Trim out, yeah.
Open the apertures out, yeah.
Open up the hole, yeah. Open the apertures for the buttons, or make sure there's no flashing on the buttons themselves because they're injection molded. There might be flashing on there that made it past QC. Make sure there's no flashing that's going to get stuck anywhere. And then just make sure that it never gets stuck, even if you try to make it get stuck. I think if they probably just added 0.1 millimeters to the tolerance of those holes, it'd be fine. But it costs money to change injection molds, and it's not
I
a
do know
issue.
that they're not making a lot of money with this.
No, like we say so often, you don't make a whole lot of money in slot cars.
No.
I wish I had said that.
So yeah, anybody else have anything they want to address with regards to the oxygen, or ask or tell? Should we move on to another topic? I'm happy to move on. All right, Dennis is ready to move on. I kind of wanted to help guide topics a little bit by having segments. I'm not sure we'll call them segments, but that's a good word for now. One of those segments was introduction of new attendees. We've already taken care of introductions for anybody new that I'm aware of. John, did you see anybody else that we've never seen before? If so, let me know.
No, but people, regulars are popping in and out, which is really kind of cool.
Yeah, and show and tell, which we've already done. Another kind of segment I wanted to do was club corner or competition corner or something like that, where anybody who is involved in regular racing with a group of people can talk about their last race that they had a great time at, or talk about an upcoming race that is planned for the near or not too distant future, or the formation of a club if they're in an area with nobody to race with. I know Neil was looking for somebody, and I believe there was somebody on YouTube who was saying, "Where is Neil? I'm in New Jersey too, and I would like to race with Neil." Did you ever communicate with that person? Look at some past videos for comments on YouTube, because there was at least one or two, probably the same dude, commented one or two times on videos where you had spoken about that. I don't remember which video it was.
Apparently he was very close to where you are in New Jersey.
How did I miss that?
Do you look at the comments on YouTube?
Actually, no, I don't.
That's why you would miss it. Yeah. So I remember saying, go back. Yeah, go back. It wasn't too long ago, but yeah, one of the times where you were talking about, racing and not having anybody to race with. So probably just a few episodes ago.
And you'll either make a friend or gain a stalker.
Exactly.
Neil, do you have a website set up, like your own club website set up with contact info? Because for our club in Iowa, we were picking up like 2 people in the middle of Iowa that would hit us. And it was a way to get people going, because just out here in the middle of nowhere, nobody knew we were here until I started doing that.
I
don't
have
think
anything.
Yeah, you don't have anything. So I'll just kind of preface that, or I'll answer that question for everybody who's ever thought of that. And Jeremy's advice is spot on. So this is Greg's guide to starting a club. Step number 1, name it. Give it a name, whatever kind of name you want. Neil's Slot Car Club. Step number 2, pick a location and set a date and time. So location, Neil's track. Date and time, next Saturday at 1 p.m. This is not real, people. So anybody out there who's thinking to contact Neil, this is not real. Wait until Neil does it.
Yeah, see, stalker. I knew it.
Yeah, so step number 3, and this is the hardest part, and the one that you have to do over and over until you're sick of it, and that is spread the word. So Facebook page, Facebook group,
What about
Twitter.
snacks? Snacks. You need snacks.
That's what happens at the event. This is how you get the thing going. Name it, date, location, and date and time to say come over and race with Neil at such and such. Don't put your address and stuff, but say PM me and I'll give you the address or whatever. And then you got to put it out there. So Facebook things.
Also go to Slot Car Illustrated and put your group in there, and Slot Forums, put your group in there. We picked up a lot from there as well.
Yeah, go to all the slot car related forums, Slot Car Illustrated, slotforum.com, Slotracer.Online, Home Racing World. Thank you, Dennis. And put a note in their club sub forum. Ask the admins, moderators to create a new club forum for your club, named whatever you name your club, and say, hey, we're going to have a race next Saturday or whatever it is, contact me for information if you're interested in coming, and then all the other stuff is just easy peasy. You've already got cars and controllers for people to play with. You'll have beers in the fridge or whatever it is, and a bowl of chips. That's a given. It's give it a name so people know what to call you when they're talking or asking about it. Posting a date and time so people know if they can attend. And then technically you're repeating number 2 and number 3, because once you've had it, then you need to set another date and time. And then you go back to all those places and say, we're having another race at this date and time. Contact me if you want to come. Free chips. Whatever. All our welcome.
Free chips, otherwise you're going to get John there every time.
And
pizza or smoked barbecue.
Just my luck, I'll show up in their oxygen chips.
Oh, good one. And of course, you're not expecting world-renowned slot car professional racers to come. So just say, bring your kids, for crying out loud. This is just dudes who like race cars goofing around on a slot car track because it's fun. And maybe we'll have a race and say there's a winner and a loser, but it's just for fun. Come and have fun. That's the whole point. And then next thing you know, a few months later, you've got half a dozen dudes coming over every month or every week or whatever you want to do.
Right.
You'll end up with guys saying, this is super fun. I've got a big old spot in my garage I never use. I'm going to set up my own track. And then you can go race on his track. That's pretty much anything that a person loves, you can do this with.
Well, look at what we're doing right here and how it's growing. We've got over 24 people here?
That's 26. That's crazy.
Well, there you go. And you followed exactly those steps. So there you go.
And then setting up a website now is so easy on Google Sites. That's where I did mine. If you go to imar.club, that's our website. And then we just did it through Google Sites. And it takes only 5 or 10 minutes as long as you have pictures. It pretty much is just drag and drop stuff where you want it and then put your information in there.
Yeah.
It sounds overwhelming because slot car racers were generally over 50. We're not interested in technology, so I had to do it for our club. But it's actually surprisingly easy these days.
That's why we buy ready to run cars, Jeremy.
Exactly. I don't want to.
It's all super, super easy. It's just a matter of sitting down and going through. I'm not going to say there's not work, but it's stuff you're doing in order to have fun with the thing that you love, right? So yeah, like John said, this is a great example.
Does talking to your local hobby shop help
I've not found that to help.
Actually, you know what? Yeah,
it didn't help me at all.
Depending on your hobby shop and how deep they're into slot cars.
Depends on your hobby shop. Yeah, and so I'll caveat that with, like Jeremy just said, didn't help him at all. Didn't help me at all. Continues to not help me because most of those hobby shops, they want to sell the cars, but they want to sell sets, and but some of them have tracks, right? When you're taking up inventory space with track, you want people racing on your track, not going off to Bob and Henry's garage track. Tracks take up space, and that is money, and you want people spending money on your track. So it depends entirely on the hobby shop. There was a radio controlled hobby shop nearby that had a small section of slot cars, but they also had a bulletin board at the back where the RC guys and people would be selling their RCs or announcing competitions and whatnot. And they let me put a flyer up there. I don't think I got a single person from the flyer. Pretty much every member of my digital club came through forums and Facebook and stuff like that. They found out about it through the internet, not in real life, but absolutely worth a try because you never know, right? If somebody's
supposing you're like me, totally illiterate on this laptop and everything else. I mean, say John a little while ago asked me to put a slide system together to show pictures of my track. Didn't work. I can't do it because I can't physically figure it out.
Well, I mean, ask yourself, where would you have been likely to find out about a slot car club?
Or Facebook groups. If you just pick groups to create a new group, that's easy. You can't. And it's got all your information right there.
Yeah, I mean,
Paul, there's always just make a sandwich board and walk up and down the street. That'll work.
Yeah, you just want to have a standard presence that's there all the time.
Yeah, I mean, if you can use Facebook, then Facebook practically tries to get you to create pages and groups these days. They make it super easy. You go to your menu in Facebook and it's like, create a page. Okay, what's a page? But in this case, you want to create a page. You create a page for your slot car club, and then you share your page with everybody on your friends list. Say, please share this with anybody you think might like to come slot car racing with me. Whatever the case may be. So if you're already racing with a club that has no internet presence, talk to the guys who run the club first, but hey, I'll make a page for you and, point them your direction so that we can get more people.
You can always get a millennial to help you as well too.
You can always get a millennial. You can always get me to help you. I can get you started on that. That's not a problem.
Well, half the guys in here. Don't limit yourself just to slot cars. I mean, there are a lot of people who are into motorsports that have been into slot cars, that are into slot cars. Because you talk to anybody who is into motorsports, and from drivers to mechanics, they all started with a slot car set. It's true.
Because I'm getting asked so many questions about my track now, and people want to come on it and race on it, and I'm thinking, do I or don't I?
Well, okay. Well, have you
decision.
Have you installed the turnstiles yet?
There you go.
Getting there.
And then when you Jeremy to help you with a card swiper or a reader for a credit card, that's no problem.
Yeah. Obviously that's your first decision is, do you really want people to come over and race on your track? Maybe you don't, and that's fine, but we're talking about people who want to start a club or get something going. And that's, like I said, give it a name, date and time, spread the word.
But Greg, that's where the personality survey comes in handy.
Yeah.
And in the long run, that's important because you've got to be sure that the people that pitch up every time are all compatible. So you've got to decide what you want to do. What kind of racing are you all out? Or are you going to run just plain stock cars? Those kind of things. And what I would say is, once you've had a couple of events, start up an email listing so that you can then start sending out emails to those people that you would like to see again, because there will be some that you probably would not like to see again. And eventually you need to especially if the track's in your home, you want to maintain some control over that.
That's a fair point. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you're making a club, you become the rule czar. Don't do this rule by committee because this is tearing us apart.
Excellent.
I've got one rule of mine is enjoy yourself.
That should always be rule number one. But
rule number one is have fun always. Right?
Jeremy makes a fantastic point, and it's something that has come up in all the various clubs of various hobbies that I've been interested in, and that is absolutely, it's your club. You make the rules. Yes, you want people to have fun, but you don't want to have people going, I don't like this. I think we should do it this other way, because then what happens is somebody else says, yeah, that sounds like fun to me too, and then you basically have potentially some serious arguments about how things are being run at your club.
Yeah.
So your first response to that is, I'll think about that.
And your second response
about it, you say,
the answer is
no.
My track.
Yeah.
It's good to be king. Yes, it's good to be king.
Well, yeah, it means you got to do all the work, but
yeah.
Oh, you got to make the rules, write them down on a big board, and stick them up. They're the rules, and that's what they got to stick by.
Have fun. Do what I say.
I went to 3 clubs in the neighborhood, and they're all driving analog. And I think I got a USP. So if you're interested, you can kind of come to drive over here. And in 2 weeks, I had 7 members.
Nice.
So it can be so easy.
Yeah.
And 3 more, then I have 10 men. It's enough.
Yeah, I mean, if there's active clubs in your area, and for whatever reason they're not racing the kind of racing that you like to race, I think Mike is a great example of that. He's got the 124th crazy fast cars and stuff like that he goes and races sometimes. But the guys who come over and race at your house you've met through that and introduced them to your kind of racing because you said, hey, I do this other kind of racing. You want to come over and give it a try? And they said, yeah, sure. I like racing slot cars. I'll try that. And now they come back, right? Pretty much.
Yeah. They've been regulars since we started, and we've had really good races. Last Monday, the race that we had all 3 guys finishing within a lap of each other at 150 laps.
Yeah.
So it's competitive. It's close, and it's fun for that reason.
Yeah.
So
and pretty much all the people that have, sorry.
Go ahead.
Pretty much all the people that race with me on my track are guys that I've met through 124 scale racing. And in fact, we're having a race today. I'm starting a new series. Going to run every couple of Wednesdays. Probably the Wednesdays that we have the call in the mornings for me this time. Then we'll run in the afternoon here between 2 and 6. And again, it's by invitation. But it's all the retired old farts that have got nothing else to do down here.
Dennis, it sounds like we need some video next week of your event.
Yeah, well, Frank's sitting there, and I could see him, and he probably will disappear a little early. Like I will probably disappear a little early so that I can get ready for them, because Frank's one of the guys who's coming around. Eddie Shora, that's been on some of ours before, he won't be here today, but he's interested. The reason he won't be here today is he's getting married tomorrow, so that was kind of nice.
Hold on. So what?
That's what I thought. That's what I said to him. Get your priorities
no
right.
excuse.
It's a bachelor party today, and tomorrow's the wedding. Today's the bachelor party.
And if you were getting married today, the only excuse would be that the wedding's this afternoon, not this morning. Anyway, so we're going to race this afternoon, and and we've always kept things pretty simple, rules-wise. Take it out the box, change the tires, do some basic tuning, and race it. No prizes, no trophies, no just bragging rights till the next time.
Yep.
And
I want my T-bone medium rare, please.
He's getting his steak order in.
There's no lunches, no meals today. Sorry.
Oh,
We used to do
darn.
that when I used to run a Saturday race. Then we would get here around noon, and then we would all practice for an hour, and then sit down and have some lunch, and then race after that. But this is in the week stuff, so it's not going to happen.
Well, I'm actually on my track. We've got another endurance race coming round, and it's the Scaletrix Group C cars. They're chosen this time. Don't ask me why, but they have. And I've said they asked if I can use my track, and I said yes. This is the first time I've said I'll let my track be used for a race. So it's one of the heats is now being held at my track.
So is that a proxy?
Yeah, proxy.
Are you
Rock and Roll's holding around as well, Paul?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is that going to be you driving all the cars one by one, or are you going to have a bunch of guys over there driving them all at the same time?
I've got some friends coming down from the old Shepton Club to help me out, because I ain't going to do it on my own. I don't even know how to work the timing system now, let alone do anything else.
Yeah, that's a lot of work. But those are people that you know and that you're familiar with, and yeah. It's not like a bunch of new.
But this is the first time I'm letting anyone
other than friends or family. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully that goes well and they don't tear your track up. Since we're on this topic, and we'll continue calling this a segment for now, does anybody have a club they're starting up, an event? Nick's holding up his finger. Go ahead. What do you got?
Just quickly, a question for Henry. You say you race at Best?
Yeah, Eindhoven. Yeah, almost in the neighborhood of Eindhoven.
Right. Okay. So you know Tamar and all
Tamar
those guys.
I've got the 28th big race over here on the 2 tracks, and tomorrow's coming.
Okay. Have you ever considered coming over to the UK for one of our oxygen races?
Yeah, I surely consider that, but there is a price card on it.
It'd be good to see you if you can make it over. It'd be good to see you.
I was just raced 2 years ago in Eindhoven, and there were also the English guys and the foreign competitors. The atmosphere, and it was my first experience with oxygen, with digital racing over there, and that started the virus.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying this year, but I think it will come.
Okay. I don't know. I'm not sure how common knowledge it is, but the Le Mans 24-hour is on next year.
It is?
Yeah.
Awesome.
So maybe if you could make that, it'd be great to see you.
Yeah. Thank you for inviting me.
But Gary hasn't posted an announcement specifically regarding that yet, has he?
No, he's what he's done. He's given the captains of the teams that entered the one that was cancelled first refusal for entry. If there's any spaces after that, then I assume it's going to be thrown open.
Well, good to hear. Look forward to watching that happen. Anybody else got any club related stuff? New clubs?
I think we just witnessed some networking here in real time.
Absolutely. Yeah. Let's keep the ball rolling. Anybody else got anything they want to do? Anybody else want to form a club and need some help with that process, or?
Well, I don't know whether it's forming a club, but Electric Dreams are starting to set up a set of classes and rules, and they will be starting to promote racing on their track in the next month or two. So again, mostly, of course, for people around the LA area. But if you're in this part of the world, it might be worthwhile checking on the website later on. I know that Marco, the guy who runs the store, has been working on the rules, and I've been working on the rules. He's set up 10 different classes already. And some of them are quite interesting. Some of them are pretty much box stock. Some of them are allowing quite a lot of modification. So, and a lot of them are splitting between like pros and amateurs, or open and limited modifications, things like that. So there'll be a class for Can-Am stuff. There'll be a class for Group C's. There'll be a class for Group 5s would be a class for Trans Am. Things like NSR Formula One is one of the classes going to be. So there's quite a good variety. He's putting the Riva slot stuff all in one class. So a lot of that will be fun. So watch the spaces on Facebook and on the Electric Dreams website for more news about that.
So I want to try it this way. So Dewan, you'll absolutely have your chance in about 1 minute here. So what I'm going to say is I want everybody to go around. I'll call your name, and if you ever race with a club nearby, or you want to start a club, or whatever the case may be, I want you to tell the world, where you are, so that they know if it applies to them, and what the name of your club is, and hopefully that's all you need to find the club information. So I'll start. I'm in the Seattle, Tacoma, greater metropolitan area of Seattle, Washington. I race with 2 clubs. The analog club that I race with is called EMSA, the Electric Motorsports Association. And we race on garage home tracks and some commercial tracks regularly, once a week, mostly in the Tacoma area, sometimes as far north as me here in Auburn. I also am part of the Digital Racing Alliance of Western Washington, or DRAW. And we race pretty much any kind of digital, whether that's Scalextric digital or Carrera digital or Oxygen or whatever the case may be. If more than one car can be in a lane at a time, I call that digital, and we'll race it. Also in the greater Seattle metro area. So if you are in Seattle or anywhere near Seattle, within a drive of the Seattle, Tacoma, Auburn area, find us on Facebook or various slot car related websites, or just Google for EMSA or DRAW. That's 2 W's at the end of DRAW, and hook up. Have some fun. Come racing. Neil, do you want to get a club started?
Excuse me, I'm not quite that ready.
Okay, and you don't race with anybody in the area yet, do you?
I don't. No, but I'm gonna put my feelers out there, and
there you go. Don't be afraid of it.
I think I just need to get hooked up with like one person, and that person could be 2 people.
That's how it starts. Just get the ball rolling. We're gonna try to move relatively quickly. Petrucci, do you race with any clubs?
Yes, I race with a club in Bromley called Bromley's Scale Electrics.
Bromley
Scale Electrics. I don't know what's happening with the lockdown and whatever. No one's been racing there for a while, so
sure.
We've been we're on Facebook on the forum, the Slot Car forum. So,
under Bromley.
Under Bromley.
Yeah. So we'll just kind of assume that because of COVID, that a given situation is that most of these clubs are not currently racing regularly. Some of them do. I haven't raced with the digital guys for over a year now. The analog guys are racing. Anyway, so moving on. Paul, who do you race with?
East Devon. It's called East Devon Slot Car Club. They're based in Alliston, which is just outside Honiton. I've got my own track called Longaroo, which is in Somerset. East Devon are in, as I say, in Devon. And I'm in Somerset. It's a wood track. Both of them are wood tracks. And last night I raced up at an old-fashioned Scale Electrics track, which is a 1/32 racing. And they've got the other club was Shepton Club, which is now called Avon Club. And that's up in just outside Bristol. The 1/32 club is in Street, which is near Glastonbury, which is also in Somerset. And the Avon one is a wooden track. So basically 3 wooden tracks and a plastic Scale Electrics track. But mine's wooden.
Good stuff. Martin, Mr. Dodd, do you race with any clubs?
No, I don't race with any clubs. We got our own club called Willowbrook, and that's in Shropshire, Telford, Shropshire. At the moment, we're not racing at all because of COVID. We've just been extra careful, I suppose. But yeah, we race once a week usually, sometimes twice, sometimes 3 times a week.
Nice. Awesome. Thank you.
It sort of works, nice and simple.
Yep. Got it. As long as you get your racing in, right? That's all that matters.
Yeah,
Jeremy, what's your clubs going on?
Yep, I race in Iowa. I'll put the link to our club in the chat. But and Iowa's right in the middle of the United States, and it's kind of cornfields and stuff. But we had at one point 8 tracks, but people have retired or passed away, and tracks get scrapped. So now we're down to 2 tracks, but my track should be back on later in this year, so that'll be back up to 3. And it's just analog racing, but with some wacky rules. So it's club committee rules, and it's just brutal.
Yeah, we know how that goes. And I've seen people post their links in the chat. Absolutely, if you want to post a link to whatever group or club you either race with or whatever the case may be, put it in the chat, and I'll make sure it's in the YouTube description links. Leo, you're next.
No clubs near me, I'm afraid. So no. In fact, I only have one slot car friend in the whole of the sort of within 50 miles of me. So yeah, it's a desert, slot car desert.
Well, maybe somebody will say, "Hey, I'm near Leo. Where are you?"
Yeah, East Lothian in Scotland.
All right, so probably not.
Edinburgh area of Scotland.
Well, hopefully somebody comes up and says, "Hey, Leo, let's race."
Yeah.
All right, Mike, what you got? Oh, I wasn't ready. You're muted.
I've got Road America West, and I haven't put anything out yet at all, but I'm in Wenatchee, Washington on the dry side of the mountains. We never see any moisture over here except in the winter. So yeah, if anybody's near, you're more than welcome. We race digital. And the idea is to make it interesting and have fun.
Awesome. So Wenatcheeites, get in touch with Mike. All right, Nick, who do you race with?
Our club's Rockingham Slot Car Club. We're based in Corby. So we are, if you're in Northampton, Market Harborough, Corby itself, surrounding areas, please come and join us. We race BSCRA type stuff on a Tuesday night. On a Friday night, it's Scalextric based cars like your Slottits, NSRs, things like that. We're looking at restarting our Oxygen digital Saturdays. We have one coming up on September the 11th. We normally do those sort of quarterly, as long as we can. And we also are hosting another, we just did a Disca Oxygen 6-hour race, I don't know, 3 weeks ago. We have another one, we have an 8-hour coming up at the last weekend of November. Yeah, we're pretty full on. We do a bit of everything, slot rally, things like that.
All right, awesome. And
you name it, we probably race it.
Probably. And Dennis, you mentioned Electric Dreams. Do you want to promote your home track club or any other home track clubs in your area?
Sure. I'm in Irvine, California, so Orange County, and I guess there's no real club of any description around here, but there are a couple of home tracks and this very loose association of guys that we call the patio racers of Orange County. Because most of our tracks are actually not in garages at all. They're out in the patios. And up until now, because of COVID, there's been very little going on. And it's starting back up a little. And fortunately, the commercial raceways are open. But from a 1/32 scale point of view, things have been very slow for the last 18 months. So hopefully we're going to get that going again. We like to, on the 1/32 scale cars, we like to run and host the various proxy races that are going on around the country. So there are always some of those coming through. The guys like that, and mostly the people that race with me are guys who started out with 1/24 scale retro cars, and then once they had been here once or twice, as Henry said, they got the virus, and then they started buying their own cars, and so pretty much most of them have learned from me how to tune cars. Most of the cheating that I do, they're well aware of now. So I guess it's no longer cheating because everybody does it. But yeah, we have a group of guys who are of like mind in terms of that this is fun, and that's all that it's about. It's fun racing cars that look like cars on a track that looks like something, and just generally enjoying what is still a really fun hobby.
Awesome.
What nights are they proposing at Electric Dreams? Do you know?
Say again?
Do you know what nights or what days they're proposing to do things at Electric Dreams?
I would expect it to be on a Saturday because of parking issues and things like that. So I would expect it to be at the weekend rather than during the week. But I'm not sure exactly what their plan is yet.
Yeah, keep an eye on Electric Dreams for that information, I'm sure. All right, Big Dan, you're next on my screen.
Thanks, Greg. Yeah, well, any of you can jump in your corporate jet and fly your way all the way down to Tasmania, the most southern part of Australia. But most of my racing is involved with the Hobart Miniature Car Club, which is at the opposite end of the state to me, about 160 k's away as as my DTM car flies when it's out of control. The guys race every Tuesday night. At the moment, they circulate around 3 separate tracks, up to 14 or 15 people. Been relatively unaffected with COVID since July last year. We've had a pretty clean sheet here in Tasmania, unlike other parts, the bigger parts of Australia. The only time we race more than one car in a lane is when I come off and end up in someone else's lane. So no digital down here. I let people copy my techniques, particularly if I want to slow them down. And that's the local scene in Launceston, as I said, dried up. One of their tracks is being resurrected just for a bit of a fun run this Saturday. So maybe I'll take some pictures and get them to you. If I could just do a screen share, Greg,
Sure.
I can show you the website for the Hobart Miniature Car Club, which is the name of the guys in Hobart. And yeah, where is it then? I only need to do it, find it.
It should be on.
Just a minute, I'll get the page up. Everything but that page.
And again, anybody who wants to share a link to their club resource of any kind, just pop it in the chat and I'll make sure it's in the description of the video.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I've got 3 web pages up here and I can't get the one I want. I saw it at the top of the screen there. I just need to go again. Oh, here it is. Right, I'll see if I can try the screen share again.
You're using a mouse, not your controller, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the spring on the mouse is broken.
Well, we might have to come back to you then.
Here, no, it's there. It's there. It should be there now. You got it?
Oh, here it comes.
Oops. Which one have you got there?
Something's coming in. I don't see it yet.
All right. Okay, well, let's just
there we go. Hobart Miniature Car Club.
Yep, that's it. That's it. They've actually this is a fairly new title page. It's a picture of a commercial raceway from the probably 66, 67 era. I only ever ran on it once when I was actually working on a mineral survey boat, and as a guy about 18 or 19, I made my way by bus out to this place, and but one of the fellas who's just started racing with a group dredged this picture out of his dad's library somewhere, and it just shows you like a typical.
That is, Dan, that's a brilliant picture. It's got to be from the 60s because everybody's mom made them dress nicely to go and drive slot cars.
Yeah. The young fella in the middle of the shot with the glasses, to me, it looks like he's the uniform of our air training cadet corps. Air training cadets, was the aviation version of the Boy Scouts. See, so the guys right at the back, they look like they've just come from school because they got their uniforms and ties on. If I can zoom in that.
I definitely had one of those jumpers with the stripes going across the top. As a
All right, let's circle back onto the topic here. Thanks for sharing that.
I just like the fact that everyone was sitting down while they were racing.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, everyone was so ordered. Yeah. No, wow.
All right, we're gonna use up our 2 hours talking about ROTC costumes here. Next on my screen is Lance. Do you race with anybody, Lance? No, you're muted, by the way.
No, no racing here. Just doing proxies.
Well,
entering cars.
All right. So, Dewan, do you got anything going on? You're still muted.
There we go. Finally, it's my intentions to start doing some racing out here. I've had my neighbor come by a few times, but I haven't set up my. I'm building a hobby room, and it's going to take a bit for all that to be done. And I was also, because that's out here in Las Vegas. I also was thinking about setting up a garage track in LA. So when I go down there, I'm down there 3-4 times a month, and maybe try to find some openings to have people come by for that. Just have a layout there. But eventually, I want to have a big layout here in Vegas with the Batman track, and then I want to have a digital track as well to start entering into that realm of the world on the side. So that's my intentions. And I was taking notes because I do want to have a club. I've always been involved in a lot of club type of things, and I love entertaining and stuff like that. So I'm gonna have a lot of little entertainment things in addition to my slot car track.
Well, yeah, we'll definitely try to revisit this topic and let anybody who's starting up a club get their club information out there. Henry, do you want to talk about your clubs real quick again?
Yeah, I'll race about 15 minutes from here at Slipstream. It's a 6-track analog, and they have also a sort of rally track, but completely digital. So it's from France, I think, when the flippers go open when you are on a position on a track. So you don't have to push the throttle or something like that, or a button. They go open when you want, when you are in the position to achieve somebody else. And then we have Zwanenburg, and it's a club from 124 scale, but sometimes they race the BRM. So that's the smaller part of the 124. And once in the 2-3 months, I go over there to race this sort of cars. And then, of course, at my home track.
Do you have a name for your track or a club name for your track?
Yeah, it's hybrid lane, because I can drive analog, digital, and digital rear, and oxygen.
Awesome. And Phil, do you have anything going on, or do you have a name for your track and a name for your club and people coming over to race on your track? You're muted. There you go.
Yeah, my track is Booby Trap Raceway, but it's going to move. So I do have people who come over, but I'll wait and talk about that when I move 62 miles from where I am now. Just got married in July, so or June, excuse me, 19th.
Well, whenever you're ready to share your new digs, definitely take that opportunity. Right. Scott, who do you race with?
I race with you guys. I guess there's typically 5 to 7 of us. We race on 3 wood tracks west of Toronto. Typically racing, I guess probably a lot of the same classes you guys race. I mean, the Trans Am, the Group C's, vintage Le Mans, F1, vintage rally, vintage sports, and a few others in there. But we're actually going to spin off into a new group in the fall to get rid of one track owner, and the gentleman that thinks he's in charge and doesn't want to add new classes. So we're going to be making some changes and adding a few new classes in the fall. So once the one other individual has his track built, that will be happening. But so that's about it.
So the conspiracy theories are correct.
That's right.
Well, be sure and let us know what the the best way to hook up with your new group when that time comes.
Will do.
Graham, who do you race with?
I just race at home, my own track. I don't race with any clubs or anything. So I'm in Langley, British Columbia, Western Canada. So, but there is Slot Car Space Solutions internet store close by. He's got a track he's set up in his garage. I've been there a couple of times, but other than that, it's just my own home track and plastic track, and I enjoy that.
Sure, that's fine. You don't have to be in a club. If you don't feel the need to create one just because I'm calling your name. Frank, I know you race.
I wouldn't mind playing on a, getting involved with a club if there's one out here that, do stuff. I do a lot of stuff, like I race my own car and stuff like that. I wouldn't mind doing slot cars, racing that way. So.
And so how far west are you?
West. I'm west. I'm just above Seattle. I'm near Vancouver.
So you don't race with Luff and all the guys that.
In all the years that I've been involved in this, I never got to Luff's place. He's on Vancouver Island now, but.
Well, yeah, he moved, but there's still a bunch of guys in the area with their Luff type tracks that they get together on.
I never got there.
Oh well, too bad Luff isn't on right now.
Yeah. But I wouldn't mind with that. I wouldn't mind joining a weekly thing like that. So,
I'm sure next time you're on and Luff is on, we'll make sure you get hooked up with some of those guys because I'm sure they're still racing.
I know a lot of those guys from SCI and stuff like that. I've just never raced with them. So
okay, so maybe not. Anyways, I keep trying to get to Frank. I know you race with Dennis. Do you have your own track yet?
Well, I do have a track, but it's just me and the family here at the house. But sure. I live in Rancho Cucamonga, California, which is in about 35, 40 minutes, depending on traffic. Could be in over an hour from LA. And I'm in what's called the Far Out Slot Car Club. Stephen Farr Jones started that one many years ago. It's a non-mag club. We have 7 classes at the moment and drive on tracks that are in garages, both plastic and routed tracks. I'll be racing at Dennis's. I also race 132nd at Big Lou's Collectibles in Culver City. That's mainly magnet. Also, I'll be joining the Electric Dreams. I worked for Marco for about a year before COVID hit to help him get things started, and I'm very proud of what he's done at Electric Dreams now and what's happening there.
Hey, can I ask a quick question, Frank?
Sure.
Your club, I know I've just read the rules, but you guys have the track owners have to provide 4 cars for each race or each class. Is that each track owner has to have 4 of those cars, or just 4 for the whole club and they kind of go around?
4 for the whole club. Actually, Stephen Farr Jones keeps all the loaners usually at his home, and he tunes them up or has somebody tune them up prior to each race. But yeah, we do have loaners.
So they travel.
Which travel to the track, whatever race classes we're racing that day. And they're usually better than most of our setups. So some people I know in the past have just paid the extra $5 and ran the loaners because they didn't like their own cars.
Nice.
All right, Jeremy, you're here. I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you race with anybody?
Me? Yeah. Worthing Digital, South Coast of England. Digital club on Scalextric Sport Track. Great atmosphere. I've only been there a few times and it shut down, closed down, sorry, for those reasons. 2-lane, there's always 6 cars in races. They're mainly basic or very lowly tuned, slightly tuned Scalextric cars, so very accessible. Lots of team races as well. They're keen on that, keen to get people in and just join in. Club cars available. And we're just building up our knowledge on Oxygen Digital and spreading our wings and joining in some of those races in the coming years or 2, hopefully.
And they're mainly an HO club too. Do you race with the HO?
Yeah. There's two. I only go there at weekends when it's digital, but there's very, very strong, and the history of the club was HO, and they've still got very strong HO. But I can't do that. I can't turn my head quick enough to follow the cars.
Awesome. Yeah, Worthing HO Racing been around for a long time, and I love seeing their digital stuff going on. What about you, Don? What you got going on in your area?
Like before, absolutely nothing.
Whereabouts are you again?
I'm in the Daniel Boone National Forest in Kentucky.
All right. You want to race with any Kentuckians, or just keep it to yourself?
Oh, I wouldn't mind racing with people, but there's just nobody around here that really cares.
All right. Well, we'll take that as a challenge. If there's anybody in the Daniel Boone National Forest, Kentucky area, we'll get you hooked up with Don. Jeremy,
Greg,
yeah, go ahead.
I will back up and say, yes, there is actually a club that I race with. It's not my track, but I'll plug this because I helped to build the track, and I actually do some work with the education committee. We do a lot of events at this track, but it's at the Gilmore Car Museum. And if I could share my screen here, I could show you. I'll just show it to you. Yep. So right here, let me look at which screen I have. I have 5 displays. So I need to get to the display. I'll just try it this way. Okay, so this is the page here. Can you guys see that now?
West Michigan Scale Slot Car Racing Group.
Yep, and that's at the Gilmore Car Museum, which is at Hickory Corners, Michigan. It's a suburb of Kalamazoo, Michigan. That big city you're all familiar with. And Gilmore Car Museum has graciously allowed us to have this racetrack here. And here's a picture of the track. See if I can get to that. I don't know if that changed for you guys. I can't. So that's a track. And, you know, my track in my basement is resemblant to this track.
Nice.
Okay, I thought it was your track at first.
No, it's resemblant to this for one reason. My then girlfriend and now wife, who enjoys my slot car hobby with me, she wasn't feeling really good about racing with the group, so I built a track so she could become very familiar with essentially the layout, even though it actually drives very differently. But she liked that layout. So this one is 29 feet. In this area here on the end where the semi trucks are, the tractor trailers and the buildings are, that parking lot area is about 6 feet wide. On my track, that's only about 5 feet and a couple of inches wide. And my track at that narrow part is that, and then it's 8 feet wide at its wide part. This one's 9 feet wide at its wide part. So I'm about a foot shorter in width all the way around, but my track is essentially the same. My track's constrained by the size of the space I have it in, which is only about 12.5 feet across. My new space is 14 feet. It could be wider than this track and longer. So here we go.
That's pretty cool. Can you pop the link in for that group into the chat?
I'll toss this out there with the link. And
the nice part about that is the driver's podium, where everybody stands away from the track and up.
I'll throw that right in the chat. So that's the other club that I'm with. In the summers, typically the racing will be on a Wednesday evening because the Gilmore Car Museum also has a really cool cruise in. But Gilmore Car Museum is the world's largest historical automotive museum with over 90 acres of property and about 15 very large buildings and a very large resource center. They're building a new muscle car museum on the property as well. And if you ever get a chance to get in the Southwest Michigan area, I highly recommend it. There are just hundreds and hundreds of vehicles at this facility, along with this slot car track and many other really unique things. So very impressive, very large collection. Usually there's, you know, I don't know, 400 or 500 vehicles around. So it's pretty big deal. Cruising night Wednesday is a big deal too.
All right, sounds like lots to do at that museum.
Lots to do.
Garth, I know you race with a close friend there at your home track. Are there any clubs nearby that you ever race with?
No, I don't. I don't race with any clubs at all. It's just me and a friend of mine and on my home track. But you guys have seen my home track, so it's it's substantial. And I mean, if anybody was interested in we race pretty much on Thursday nights from November to the end of March every year.
And whereabouts are you again?
In St. Clair Shores, Michigan, which is a northern eastern Detroit, Michigan suburb.
All right.
So,
Well, if anybody's in the area, I'm sure they'll say hi. And Wayne, I know you race with some of the other guys in the chat. Where do you race regularly?
Well, I come from a place called Chester, not far into North Wales, and I regularly go to the North Wales Slot Car Club. Over there's a wood track. They've got 5 categories of cars. Everyone brings their own cars, but there's always the opportunity to run whatever you like. There's always a run what you brung. I also relatively less regularly, because it's a midweek Tuesday night, attend a new club in the Wirral. The Wirral is the piece of land across the Mersey from Liverpool. And they've got a new wood track there. They run on a Tuesday night. I run at North Wales on a Friday. Both clubs, if you want to call them clubs, have got Facebook presence. So if you want to find them, that's the best way. Just look at Wirral Slot Racing and North Wales Slot Car Club on the Facebook.
Awesome. Thank you very much for sharing. And hey, Brian, I know you're out there somewhere. Do you race with anybody, or is it pretty much just you doing your thing?
Pretty much just me doing my thing. Occasionally my son and my grandson will come over.
Hey, nothing wrong with that, as long as you're having fun. And Dr. Ray, I know you're out there. Do you have anybody that you race with on a regular basis? In case you're trying to speak, you're currently muted. Yeah, looking through the list here.
Sorry about that. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm in North Central Florida, near Gainesville, Florida, and it's another slot car desert here. But I do have one person I race with. He runs Ninco, I run Scalextrics, and make our cars and tracks compatible. So we hope that we get through COVID and get back together racing soon.
All right. Well, when that happens, hopefully you guys can find some more people to race with, because it's just more fun when you got more guys. If only so that 2 guys can race while other couple of guys can marshal. Put them to work. All right. I think we pretty much covered everybody, and we're down to our last 15 or 20 minutes. Does anybody else have anything they want to chat about, ask about, talk about?
I have a tech question.
Go ahead, Brian.
I've been putting these chassis, designing and printing these chassis and setting them up. And I've seen a couple posts and a couple videos on setting up your guidepost. And they all recommend you do it without the front wheels. And I was kind of curious as to what's the advantage of setting up your guideposts without your front wheels, especially if you're running height adjustable front axles and you're going to be tuning that anyways. Wouldn't it be more beneficial to have your chassis set up at ride height with both axles and then set your guide, or am I missing something here?
I'm gonna let Dennis, or I don't think Chris is on right now, so either Dennis or somebody else tackle that one.
I think that it's easier to set the guide. It's easier to set the wheels than the guide. So I would probably be setting the guide first and get the ride height that you want at the front of the car with the guide on the kind of track that you have, with whatever recess or extension of the contacts, right? If you're running on Carrera, for example, the rails are just ever so slightly above the surface, like Scalextric, or if you're running braid, then very often they're sunk a little. So you want to replicate that on a test board, set the car up with it so that the guide is as deep as it can go in the slot and there's decent pressure on the braids, and then add the wheels and adjust the wheels until they either just touch or just don't touch, depending on how you like to run the car. So I would always set the car based on the guide to control the front of the car. That said, if you have enough adjustment on the wheels, you don't have to take them off. You can just back all the adjustment out and let them float up and down while you're setting that, and then go from there.
Okay, I have a tendency, I've noticed on some of my cars that the braid tends to run on the very lead edge of the braid as opposed to the back of the braid.
Well,
what am I doing wrong?
Okay, and then that's because mostly because you have a lot of clearance at the rear of the car, right? So the back of the car is up in the air, the front of the car is down close to the track, so the whole thing is sloping down towards the braid, and the guide itself is in such a position that it's horizontal with the chassis, right? Yeah. And so now when you tilt it up like that, it's going to run on the front of the braid. So
reduce the rake angle.
Correct. The first thing to do is reduce the rake angle. The second thing is, and that's why we do it when we're scratch building, is you always build when you're building the car, I always build it with about a 2 degree up angle on the guide. So that when you're finished and you have a slight rake angle in the chassis, that the guide is then parallel to the track rather than parallel to the chassis.
See, I've never tried that on my chassis. My guide post is a separate piece, and I do it that way so when it prints, the bottom prints perfectly smooth. I don't have to worry about getting supports off the bottom of it.
Yeah.
But I also space it where it's 1.5 millimeters higher than the bottom of the chassis.
Yeah.
So I've got plenty of clearance for the guide underneath. You know, it's not hanging low.
Yeah.
And then I can shim it if necessary.
Yeah.
But I've noticed even some of my commercially made cars, they have a tendency, they like to ride on the front of the braid. So
Well,
I'll pay a
then
little more attention.
basically your rear tires are too big. That's the first thing. You know, you're running way too much clearance at the back of the car.
Okay. Well, again, some of them, they're the commercial made cars. That's the way they came. So I'll pay a little more attention to the rake. I usually try one of my own chassis. I try to run them fairly flat, but I might not be as
All
flat.
right, but then I mean, even so, if your guide holder is separate to your chassis, you could, and I don't know how you're attaching it. Are you screwing it on?
Glue.
Or gluing it on? Oh,
yeah. I actually print the guide as a ring. It's actually a modification of Greg's Scalextric's fix.
Like
I've just made the ring a permanent part of the chassis. But what I can do is I can angle that ring.
Yeah,
about 2
that's
degrees,
what I would do.
and I'll just build the 2 degrees right into the chassis.
That's what I would do. Yeah.
Brilliant. That should work perfectly. Thank you.
Yeah. All right.
Right, Brian. The other reason that can happen is if there is a slot or any significant looseness between the guide post and the guide tube, and I always pay particular attention to reducing that as much as possible. It can get difficult, but if I find a car that's running on the
for a towing truck.
Sorry? I think Ray chirped in.
Yeah, Ray said something. I think
the slot part, Wayne, makes great sense too, especially on the lower end commercial cars, because some of them do have a lot of that in it. And I have been paying a lot closer attention to that. I print my guide post a little undersized, and I literally take the time to file and fit them now.
Yeah,
and
I find it prevalent in Scalextric original equipment round guides. That's one that's particularly prone to, you see, all the friction on the braid is trying to pull the braid back in relation to the car, and that tips the guide forward slightly. So it's good to pay attention to reducing the guide slop as much as possible. And in the case of a Scalextric round guide, that normally means taking a little bit of material off the very top of the guide post and fitting it with a screw down in the top. Well, it's actually got a screw, but you can use that existing screw and just
shim it a little bit.
Yeah, get it working optimally, better than factory, and you can improve matters.
All right, thank you.
Welcome.
Yeah, good one. And just the Scalextric fix model was basically just a straight duplication of the Binova, ring system as well. It's
if you're working with the stock guide, Wayne's idea of slicing 10 thousandths off the top of the guide is a good one. Either that or a little washer at the base of it, which then moves the guide down into the slot. Then when you tighten the screw up, you can actually adjust it so that you can get to a point where there's very, very little friction, but no back and forth play.
Yeah, I actually, on these last two chassis I built, I went with the NSR guide with the flat screw, and it works brilliant. I mean, it's amazing how just a 16th of a turn can make a difference on wobble in that thing.
Yeah,
and
Yeah.
they work brilliant. So.
Of course, the alien one to all of this is all the cars that have got snap-in guides. They're terrible for it. I hate those.
Yeah, they all have their pros and cons. All right. Anybody else got anything they want to talk about? Well, you got about 10 left. Go ahead, Dennis.
I'm just going to ask if you guys will excuse me because I've got a bunch of guys coming to race this afternoon and I've got to get going.
There's no excuse for you. All right. Have fun.
All right.
We'll see you next time.
I see
I'm
Frank's
signing
already.
off as well.
Frank's already getting ready, and if Frank's coming, I better go shower and.
I found it on your door now.
Well, at least he's not getting
Dennis.
married like Eddie.
At least I'm not getting married. No, well, I am already married.
Priority's wrong.
That's right.
All right, guys. So we'll have a good race this afternoon. It's nice to talk to everyone, and we'll see you again soon. See you next week.
Take some photos. Don't forget to take some photos for next week.
All right.
Hey, there's Frank. Frank, you need to get going.
Yeah, Frank, go on.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to go hit the freeway. You guys have a good week.
Yeah, see you later.
Bye.
I'm signing off.
All right, see you
next week.
See you, Petrucci.
Bye.
Good night, Petrucci.
I've got a question for you, Paul.
Go on.
All the times I've worked down in Cornwall, Devon, I've never known there were slot clubs around there.
There's one in Plymouth as well. Forgot to mention.
Yeah. I worked in Tiverton, Glastonbury, Bridgewater.
Yeah.
Something north in
North Piverton.
North Piverton, not North Piverton. Somerset North, that's the one.
Yeah. Well, that's
Somerset North, Bodmin,
yeah,
Red Roof, and all round that one. And I never always wanted to find something to do when I was working down there. The only thing I could do was go in the pub.
It's an underground movement in Cornwall. They keep it in the mines.
Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember when I was working down in Bodmin, I went down to the Bodmin jailhouse. I don't know if it's still running, that club.
Yeah.
Is it still going?
Yeah.
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 There you go.
Oh, that's what we're trying to do is
Anyway, I'm signing off.
all right, see you.
I'll see you next week. Take care, everybody.
See you, Petrucci.
Bye.
I could have sworn I saw Kelly trying to get my attention.
Kelly did have a question, but I think he disconnected.
Yeah, I don't see him in the list anymore.
I have a quick question. Has anybody had good results with the NSR Corvette? I got the original orange NSR Corvette, but it's really it's loose in the corners for me. I can't get it sorted out.
Nope, it's horrible. Send it to me.
Yeah, I had the no prisoners one, and it ran like a dream. I guess
the Repsol one, and that's running complete white.
I don't remember. Were you here last week when I was talking about my NSR Classic and the weight tuning that I did to it?
Yeah, you put a little weight in the back. I haven't tried that yet, but I know I got the new tires from the new company that has the tires that fit into the air gap. Quick Slicks. I think Quick Slicks has a new air gap because I think that was part of my problem. I'm only getting like two sides to contact where it kind of bows. But other than that, it was tail happy.
I mean, these guys had all kinds of great advice, but the first question is, what do your rules allow?
Yeah, that's why I was paying attention to what you did, and I was like, let me see if I can replicate that. But I was just wondering because sometimes a company will come out with a car and it's a great car, but it's inferior to the rest of their cars.
Please hold, caller, while I take my body off.
I mean, my club rules were so restrictive. There were so many things I could do, but because of the rules, I could not do them. So
is that the Corvette? I can't.
That's the C7.
Okay. Yeah, I think I have angle winder also at a 21.5.
Yeah, you put some lead in there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hey,
Straight
okay
through
for you?
into the pod. The pod screws are about a quarter turn loose.
And do you have your air tires, or are they filled or still air?
They're air rims. They're the wheels that come on the car when you buy it. They're ultra grips. Don't get me wrong; they're very well treated ultra grips. But
you have
it's the factory motor. It's the factory motor. It's the factory bearings. The bearings are glued into the pod.
Show the other.
If you guys are having good luck with it, I'll just keep messing with it. I just didn't want to waste my time if it was kind of a known.
Show the underside.
You can also
Nick,
thrust springs.
That's a thing.
Yeah, I can't do that.
Yeah, so that makes a big difference.
I mean, I only did that because I went to a different club on Monday night. I can take if you race which I don't anymore, but if you race the National GT3 Championship, you're not supposed to do that. That is the underside without tape.
You got zero grips on the front?
They're zero grips on the front, varnished. And they're also the small diameter wheels.
And Nick, are your rear tyres empty?
Yeah, he said they're empty.
Are the rear tyres what, sorry?
Air wheels.
Without
they're the ones you get on the car when you buy it.
And you haven't filled the gap?
You can also
I haven't
add
filled the gap.
springs.
I haven't filled the gap on those. No.
Haven't filled the gap yet.
That's
Hey,
fine.
Greg,
Yeah, Ray.
you said you had the No Prisoners Corvette. Is that the black one?
Yeah, with the skull on the front.
Yes, I have that also. And the finish on it broke down. It's just the whole body is just very sticky now.
That's unfortunate. I sold mine a few years ago, so I don't have it anymore. But that kind of paint job, that doesn't surprise me that it degraded at some point. That was like one of the early matte satin type paint jobs. So that doesn't surprise me. That's unfortunate though.
Yeah, it's got great grip on your hand. I don't know about on the track.
So when you flip it, it won't keep sliding. That's a bad thing in slot cars. You want it to keep sliding.
Yeah.
Position.
What sort of float do you have on your body screws? Can I ask?
Well, I just put in the silicone 0.5 millimeter underneath the pod, and then underneath the screw. I'm gonna test that next week. But I backed it off maybe only 1/8 of a turn, just to get a little bit of jiggle in there.
No, you want about half a turn.
Yeah, that's how
I
it is.
mean, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if you can see. Paul's got it about right. That's about right. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I'll just keep playing with it. I just didn't want to keep wasting time if it was a turd. But if it's a good car, I'll keep going.
I've got rid of everything underneath mine. The chassis. I built this one for my son. So.
Yeah, I'm like Greg. My rules are pretty restricted to as how it comes, and you can only change tires. So I'm like, I don't know what more I can do.
The motor pod's all loose. I don't think see. The chassis, everything's all loose.
Yeah, there's NSR C7 Vet. Yeah. You don't want anything tight on it.
No.
Nothing. You don't want anything tight on it at all.
If I remember rightly, I've got tungsten there, and a bit across the back, and that's it.
Jeremy, have you track tested it after putting in the washers?
No, I've just played around with it. I just have a test track because my track's not up yet. But this weekend I'll give it another try on the wood track. I can only make a few adjustments and then go test it. I can't just like change 10 things and go, well, we'll fix it. I don't know.
No.
That's probably a
hey,
good.
Jeremy, you watch when I pull the pod.
Hold on, let me spotlight you. Okay.
Right.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah.
See it all moving?
Yep.
Yeah. The whole pod goes, that's how loose it's always. The whole thing is loose.
Yeah.
Yeah,
did somebody try it already? Springs.
Spring suspension.
I can't in my league, but I haven't tested them.
Yeah, that's
not on the wood track. You don't want the suspension on an NSR on the wood track, really.
No, okay, no, not on the wood track. That's true.
Yeah, when I had my No Prisoners Corvette, we were racing the NSR GTs, and the spring suspensions were allowed in the specs. So I did have springs on that car, but we do run on plastic sectional track quite a bit, so it ran really nicely on that. Yeah. But I'm thinking, once I get some of those silicone washers, I'm going to give that a try on some of my like Skill Auto and other cars and stuff, just to
We can't get them here at the moment. Pendles are sold out completely.
Yeah, and when I placed, but I thought I had placed an order for them, but then when I went back to place an order, realizing I hadn't placed the order with Alan, they were out of stock. I called him up. What's up with that? And he's like, oh yeah, I'll try to get some in for you. Yep. So apparently that's going to take a while.
Oh,
I saw that he was out, and so
on
I picked.
eBay. Hang on, where is it? Where did I get?
I picked
Go
up
on
some
eBay.
0.5 millimeter silicone that they use to put on computer chips to keep them cool. And I've got a laser cutter behind me there. I'm going to try to cut it and see if I can, actually make some that are the same mill. But I'll let you guys know. I won't be able to get to it till next week.
Sure, that's cool.
When that's done, Jeremy, you can take all our addresses because we've all been looking around the internet to try and find this thing.
Yeah, I just don't know
noticed
how
it.
well the laser is going to cut through silicone because silicone's surprisingly tough. It's not like wood or paper.
Mm.
Go on in, Nick. What have you got?
These, you go on eBay, these are like £5. And they are basically very, very small rubber O-rings for watch repairs.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, they're stuck to the lid.
Yeah, those
I'm
are
not
nice.
going to tip this one up because they'll go everywhere. These ones are stuck to the lid.
How many mil
so-
are they? Like, did you put it in your calipers?
I can, but the sizes are actually written on the top, but it's covered by a label. You've probably got. Let me hang on, I'll get my caliper out. Hang on, I've just put my box away.
I was going to say, it looked like
Sorry,
it
I
had,
didn't mean to do
looked like it had a variety of sizes there, Nick.
They are basically for your water resistant watches. They go around your
the button
winder or whatever.
What do you search for again on eBay? Watches, spacers, or watches?
Watch repair washers.
Jeremy, just
Could be
a
silicone
little
seals.
tip.
I was going to say seals or gaskets or something.
Sorry, Jeremy, a little tip with silicone. It doesn't burn well, so you may have a bit of a challenge with a laser.
I
You
know.
might have better luck trying to use a punch.
Yeah,
Well, also my wife has like a Cricut cutter that has a built-in X-Acto blade that cuts stuff out. I'm gonna try that too.
Silicone doesn't burn very well.
I'm going for, without trying to crush it too much, you've probably got a 3.4 mil outside diameter, a 2.4 mil inside diameter.
That's a 1 millimeter cross section.
I was going to say that'd probably be a 1 millimeter.
I don't know, I've just dropped it. Hang on, I've got to get another one.
I mean, if it's round, like if the
Yeah.
cross section is
It
round,
is
it's about a mil thick.
I've been all over it.
0.75. About 0.75 thick.
All right, yeah.
Most O-rings are specified by their cross section, their ID, and their OD.
Well, I
And,
could have given you that, but the label covers the size on the top of the lid. So,
And
What are they called again, Nick?
sorry,
What are they called again?
Waterproof watch seal
Yeah,
washers. I found that.
I just went on eBay and I looked for very small O-rings, rubber O-rings, and it comes up with these watch repair kits. And
does it
honestly,
say-
there's I don't know.
does it say that they're nitrile rubber or silicone on
I
there
think
at
they're
all?
silicon. I
It
think
does
they're
say
silicon. I didn't look that close, if I'm honest. I think they're silicon, but a box of, I don't know, however many I've got there, I don't think
Hundreds.
you can see. I don't think you'll see. But that was like £5, and it was free delivery.
Just remember, it was O-rings that brought down the space shuttle, so be careful.
It was.
Very true.
We're going to end the recording here. So, gentlemen, obviously keep chatting about your O-rings and whatnot. For everybody else, we're going to wave bye-bye. Come to a next Zoom chat, and bye.
Bye.